Deciding who takes over, it's probably one of the biggest calls a leader ever has to make. This one challenge, it's shaped empires, built dynasties, and, yep, it's totally sunk Fortune 500 companies. So let's get into it, because this whole problem of passing the torch, it's not new. It's ancient. And the solution? Well, it's hiding somewhere you'd probably never think to look. Okay, so first, let's just set the stage here. Every single organization, I don't care who you are, eventually has to deal with a change at the top. Maybe someone retires, quits, or just isn't cutting it anymore. But here's the thing, actually getting that transition right, it is so hard. And the stakes, they're sky high. And we're not talking about a small bump in the road here. No way. The research is pretty clear. If you mess up the succession, it can be a total knockout punch for your organization. There's this researcher, H.A. Havman, who basically said there's a straight line connecting a leadership change to whether an organization lives or dies. Think about that. The wrong person in the chair can literally destroy a company.
And you've seen this play out, right? Just look at Apple. When Steve Jobs first left, the company kind of lost its way. They struggled so much that they eventually had to bring him back. That's what some people call the boomerang effect. It's like the biggest, most obvious sign that your first plan just didn't work. So you have to ask, if a powerhouse like Apple can get it so wrong, where on earth do we look for a blueprint that does work?
Well, to find that answer, we've got to go back, way, way back. And no, we're not flipping through some dusty Harvard Business Review article. We're digging into a story that's about 3,500 years old. And get this, it's a blueprint for succession that worked flawlessly under, and I mean this, some of the most intense pressure you can possibly imagine. So what if I told you that one of the greatest succession plans in history wasn't cooked up in some fancy boardroom? What if it was engineered right in the middle of a desert, with the survival of an entire nation hanging in the balance? Okay, let's break this down like a business case study. Your leader? Moses. Your organization? The entire nation of Israel. And the project? Well, it's a huge, multi-generational mission to get to a place they called the Promised Land. So if you think about it in today's terms, Moses was basically the CEO of a massive and seriously challenging organization. So how did he do it? How did he get his organization ready for the day he wouldn't be there anymore? Well, when you dig into the story, you find this really systematic process. We can call it the Moses management model. And what's wild is just how modern and how effective it really is. It basically boils down to 3 main steps. First, you've got the plan phase. This is all about finding, developing, and really testing your candidates. Then you move to implement, where you get your chosen successor fully equipped for the job. And finally, there's support, making absolutely sure the handover goes off without a hitch. Okay, let's get into the details. So, step 1, finding the candidates. And this is so important. Moses didn't go looking for some superstar hire from the outside. Nope, he focused on growing leaders from inside his own organization. And that's something the best companies today really understand. It's how you keep your culture strong and hold on to all that knowledge. So he built this pipeline of talent, right? He picked 12 potential leaders, one from each of the nation's departments, or tribes as they were called. And this wasn't just some random number. It was all about being fair. By picking someone from each group, he was sending a clear message. Everyone in this organization gets a fair shot at the top job. All right, so after he picked them, it was time for the test. And this was no pop quiz or, some kind of personality assessment. Moses gave them a real high-stakes mission. They had to go on a recon mission deep into enemy territory. You can think of it as the ultimate on-the-job test, right? Something designed to show who they really were, their character, their skills, how they handled themselves when the pressure was on. And the results? Wow. They were pretty brutal. Out of the 12 guys he sent, 10 of them totally failed. They came back with these reports that were just full of fear and, frankly, lies. It almost wrecked the morale of the entire nation. Only 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, actually passed the test. They showed the kind of guts and integrity you need in a leader. So the process worked. It didn't just identify people with skills. It filtered for real character. So, with his successor, Joshua, now identified, Moses kicks into the next phase, implementation. And look, this was not a weekend workshop. We're talking about decades of one-on-one mentoring. This relationship started when Joshua was just a young guy. Moses gave him real power, too, like putting him in charge of an army in a real battle. And crucially, he backed him up in public. building up Joshua's reputation in front of everybody.
The key takeaway here is that this was a whole system, not just one or two good ideas. This table, which comes straight from the source material, it lays the whole thing out, from setting the vision, to finding and testing people, to getting the successor ready, and then even supporting them after they take over. I mean, it's a totally comprehensive plan.
But here's the thing. You can have the best process in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset, it's all going to fall apart. The how is one thing, but the why, that's what really makes it tick. So let's talk about the philosophy that was the engine behind this whole model. I mean, what was it that made Moses pour everything into his successor instead of just clinging to power like so many leaders do today? That's where it usually goes wrong, right? Why did this ancient plan work so well when our modern plans so often get derailed by ego and just plain old self-preservation? Well, the answer is something that modern business thinkers call servant leadership. A guy named Robert Greenleaf made it famous, and the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. It just means that a leader's number one job is to serve the needs of their people, not the other way around. And the difference between this and, well, the other way, it's like night and day. A leader first person is all about protecting their own power, their own status. But a servant first leader, they're asking totally different questions. They're asking, are my people growing? Are they becoming healthier, wiser, better? The whole focus shifts from me to them. And when that's your focus, training your replacement isn't a threat to your job. It's literally the greatest sign of your success. Now, even though Greenleaf gave it this modern name back in the 70s, the source material makes it really clear that this idea is ancient. Its roots go way back to the teachings of Jesus, who pretty much spelled it out perfectly. He said he came not to be served, but to serve. Okay, so the big question, does this ancient idea actually hold up in our crazy, fast-paced world today? And all the evidence points to a huge yes. This is not just some feel-good theory. It is a real, practical strategy for building companies that last and that win. In fact, a ton of really successful companies today have built their whole culture around servant leadership. And we're talking about major players, like Southwest Airlines and Chick-fil-A, but also big names in their own fields, like the Toro Company and TD Industries. And believe me, this isn't just some slogan they put on a poster. Take a company like Southwest. Having a servant's heart is literally the first of their 3 main values. It's baked right into their DNA. And it just goes to show you can put serving others first and still build a crazy profitable company that people absolutely love. So, at the end of the day, what we have here is this incredibly powerful blueprint. It's a way of leading that's not about grabbing power, but about giving service. It's not about your ego. It's about helping others grow. It was tested and proven in a desert thousands of years ago, and it's still proving itself in boardrooms right now. So really, there's only one question left to ask. How are you going to use it?